The orphan in rags. The alien marketplace was full of noise, lights, and colors. But in one shadowed corner, a small figure sat silent, wrapped in dirty rags. Her body was thin, her face almost hidden, and her eyes dim like fading stars. People walked past her as if she did not exist. Some even stepped close, kicking dust in her direction. But she never moved, never spoke. She was known only as the orphan, not even given a real name. She was the leftover of a species feared in war but hated in peace. Her people were tall, strong and proud, but she was small, weak, and unwanted. For years, no one saw her as a female, no one treated her as a person. To them, she was nothing, a burden, a piece of trash lying in the corner of the galaxy. Her hands trembled as she held a piece of metal scrap, pretending it was food. Her stomach growled, but no one cared. She looked at the merchants selling their shining weapons, glowing crystals, and alien pets. She was cheaper than all of them, worth less than even a cage animal. Every night she curled against the cold wall, wishing she could disappear. The shopkeepers laughed when they saw her. "Still alive?" one said, throwing a rotten fruit at her. The fruit hit her shoulder, but she did not complain. She just lowered her head and waited for the laughter to pass. For her, silence was safety. If she spoke, she would be beaten. If she begged, she would be mocked. Better to be silent, better to be invisible. But that day, someone new arrived in the marketplace. A human, tall, broad-shouldered, with curious eyes. He walked differently from the others, calm, steady, not rushing. His clothes were plain, his face tired from travel. He came looking for supplies, food, and tools, but his eyes caught something no one else noticed. In the corner, sitting like a ghost, was the orphan in rags. He slowed down, frowning for a moment. He thought she was a broken doll, but then her golden eyes lifted just slightly, meeting his. His chest tightened. Something about those eyes, tired but still alive, pulled him closer. The shopkeeper laughed when he noticed. "Don't look there, human. That's not for sale. That's nothing." "Nothing?" the human asked, his voice calm but sharp. "Just a leftover orphan." The shopkeeper smirked. "Not even worth feeding. We keep her for jokes." The orphan lowered her head quickly, hiding her face under the rags. Her heart raced. She knew, better than to hope every time someone looked at her it ended in pain. But the human did not laugh. He did not spit. Instead, he kept staring, silent, his hands clenched slowly at his sides. "Why is she here?" he asked after a pause. His voice was quiet but firm. "Because no one wants her," another alien said. "Not as a worker, not as a mate. She's useless, broken." The words cut her like knives, but she stayed still. If she moved, if she cried, they would beat her. But then the human's eyes softened. He stepped closer until he was standing right in front of her. She froze, trembling under his shadow. He bent down slowly, not touching her, just lowering himself so his eyes could meet hers. "Hey," he whispered. "Are you all right?" Her lips parted but no sound came out. Her throat was dry, her voice long forgotten. She wanted to say something, anything, but fear chained her tongue. Still, her eyes met his again, and this time, for just a second, there was a spark of life. The shopkeeper chuckled. "Don't waste your time, human. She's not even female. She's just it." But the human's gaze hardened. He stood up straight, glaring at the merchant. "Don't call her that," he said, his voice low, dangerous. The market grew quiet for a moment. The orphan's heart pounded. No one had ever defended her. No one had ever spoken for her. She pressed her hands to her chest, trying to understand what was happening. The human walked away, but his mind did not let go. That night in his small outpost cabin, he lay awake, unable to sleep. The image of her glowing golden eyes would not leave him. They were not empty. They were hiding something, something no one else had seen. He turned onto his side, staring at the ceiling. Why would they treat her like that? He whispered to himself, His fists tightened on the blanket. He had seen many things in the galaxy: cruelty, greed, slavery. But something about that orphan in rags felt different. Meanwhile, the orphan lay in the dark corner of the marketplace, shivering from the cold night wind. But for the first time in years, her heart whispered a thought she could not push away. Someone saw me, and as she closed her eyes, her small, fragile body trembled. Not from hunger this time, but from a tiny, dangerous hope. The cage below the city. The human came early to the market the next day. His eyes searched the corner where the orphan in rags had been, but the spot was empty. The wall was bare, the dust undisturbed. She was gone. He asked a merchant nearby. "The girl, the one who sat here, where is she?" The merchant smirked. "Oh, that one. Taken to the pits." "The pits?" The human frowned. "Auction tonight?" The alien sneered. "They'll put her in a cage for laughs. Maybe someone will buy her for scraps, or maybe she'll be sold for sport." The human's stomach tightened. He had heard of the pits, underground cages where the unwanted were thrown, sometimes sold, sometimes mocked, sometimes never seen again. He didn't hesitate. He followed the path behind the market, down into the rusted tunnels that smelled of smoke and old blood. The cages were lined with iron bars stacked one over another, dark, damp, and filled with shadows. Screams echoed from one corner, laughter from another. Small lights flickered above like dying stars. And there she was. The orphan sat inside one of the lowest cages, curled into a ball, her thin arms wrapped around her knees, her golden eyes staring at the ground. Her rags even dirtier now, her skin bruised. He stepped closer, gripping the bars. "You?" he whispered slowly. She raised her head. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw him. She blinked as if she couldn't believe it. He had come back. But then she lowered her head again, ashamed. Her lips moved, forming words too quiet to hear. Guard shoved the human back. "Stay away, outsider," the alien barked. "That thing is for the auction. You want a slave, pay for one inside." The human clenched his jaw. His fists tightened, but he stayed calm. His eyes returned to her, and for the first time she whispered loud enough to hear. "Why?" The word was soft, broken, filled with confusion. Why had he come back? Why was he looking at her? No one had ever asked about her before. No one had ever cared before he could answer. The pitmaster entered, his heavy boots clanging against the metal floor. "Get her ready," he roared. "Tonight we sell the joke of the century." The guards laughed, unlocking the cage and dragging her out. Her small body stumbled, her feet bare, chains rattling around her wrists. She didn't resist. She never did. The human's chest burned with anger. He stepped forward. "Stop," he said firmly. The guards chuckled. "What's the matter, human? You want her?" The pitmaster grinned with yellow teeth. "Nobody wants this one. She's too weak for work, too ugly for a mate, too small for breeding, worthless. But worthless things can still entertain the crowd. They'll bid just to laugh." The orphan closed her eyes, waiting for the mocking, waiting for the humiliation. But instead the human spoke again, this time louder. "I'll take her." The pit went silent for a second. Then laughter exploded. The guards howled. The pitmaster nearly doubled over. You want that?" he mocked. "Human, you must be desperate." But the human didn't laugh. His face stayed steady, his voice calm but sharp. "I said I'll take her. Name the price." The pitmaster leaned closer, studying him, expecting hesitation. But the human's eyes didn't move, didn't waver. Finally, the alien snorted. "Fine, pay the fee and she's yours, I don't care. At least we'll make some credits out of this trash." The human handed over his payment without another word. The chains were unlocked, and the orphan fell forward, weak, trembling. She would have hit the floor, but he caught her. Her small frame was weightless in his arms. For the first time in her life, someone held her gently. She stared at his chest, her eyes wide, her lips trembling. "Why?" she whispered again, softer this time. A question not of confusion, but of wonder. But before he could answer, her body shook. Her skin glowed faintly under the dirt and bruises. A strange light flickered around her veins. Her breathing slowed. As her head dropped against him, the human froze, holding her carefully, his mind racing. What is happening to her? The guards laughed again. Careful, human, you bought a broken one. She'll die in your arms before morning. But he didn't believe it. He looked down at her glowing skin, at her fragile body resting in his arms, and whispered, "No, she's not broken." He lifted her fully, carrying her away from the pit, his steps strong, his eyes forward, and though her eyes were closed, her lips curved, the smallest, faintest smile. For the first time in her life, she felt safe. She's not what she seems. The human's cabin was small but warm. A simple bed, a wooden table, and a fire that pushed away the night cold. He placed the orphan carefully on the bed, her body so light it felt like carrying air. She didn't wake, her eyes shut, her breathing shallow. He watched the faint glow still running along her skin. It pulsed like golden veins under her flesh, fading and returning in slow waves. He had never seen anything like it. He sat beside the bed, silent, waiting. Hours passed before her eyes finally opened, her golden gaze flickered to life again. For a moment she looked at him with confusion, then fear. She pushed herself up weakly, her voice hoarse. "You should have left me." The word stung him. He leaned closer, shaking his head. "No, I don't leave people behind." Her lips trembled. She looked down at her wrists where the chains had been. Dark marks burned into her skin. She rubbed them gently as if trying to erase her past. Her shoulders were tense, her entire body ready to flee. He noticed her fear and softened his tone. "You're safe here," he said. "No one will hurt you. Not while I'm around." Her throat tightened. No one had ever spoken to her like that. She wanted to believe him, but her heart still carried years of scars. He brought her water and food, simple bread and fruit. She stared at it, her hands hesitant. When she finally picked up a piece, she ate like a starving animal, quick, desperate. But when she realized he was watching, she froze, embarrassed. "You don't have to hide," he said gently. "Eat. It's yours." Her eyes widened again, as if the idea of something being hers was impossible. She finished the food slowly this time, as though trying to understand what kindness tasted like. When she was done, she pulled the ragged cloth tighter around herself, her voice soft, almost shaking. "Why did you take me?" He sat back, folding his arms. "Because no one else would. And because when I looked at you, I didn't see trash, I saw someone worth saving." Her chest tightened. She wanted to cry but fought the feeling. For years she had been told she was worthless, a burden, not a female, not a person. And now here was someone saying the opposite. She whispered, "My name, Kalira." The human smiled faintly. "Kalira. That's beautiful." Her eyes widened, shock flashing across her face. No one had ever called her beautiful. She had been called weak, broken, ugly, but never that word. She turned away quickly, hiding her face, but he saw the faint glow along her cheeks, not just from the strange light in her body, but from something else, something alive. That night the cabin was quiet. He laid down on his mat by the fire while she curled up again on the bed. But the cold crept in through the walls, and Kalira shivered under the thin blanket. She glanced at him, his chest rising and falling. Slowly, his strong frame resting in calm sleep. Her heart pounded. A voice in her head told her not to move, not to trust. But another voice whispered that for the first time, she wasn't alone. Quietly, she slipped from the bed and sat close to the fire. Her body warmed, but her eyes drifted back to him. She wondered what it would feel like to stand beside him, to belong to someone who didn't see her as nothing, her. Hand touched the floor. Trembling, she whispered to herself, "Why is he different?" But outside, danger stirred. Beneath the stars, shadows moved, ships landing on the far edge of the outpost. The bounty hunters had arrived. Their target, the orphan who had been taken from the pits. Kalira didn't know it yet, but the human had unknowingly put himself in the path of something far bigger than either of them. Back in the cabin, the fire crackled. She leaned closer, whispering a question into the silence. Why? Me. The human, half asleep, heard her. He opened one eye, his voice low and steady. Because I see you. Her heart stopped for a moment, then raced faster than ever before. She didn't answer. She just turned her face away, hiding the tears that slipped quietly down her cheeks, hunted for being wanted. The sun rose over the outpost, painting the desert sky in red and gold. The human stepped outside his cabin, breathing the cool air. But his instincts told him something was wrong. The ground carried faint vibrations, the kind made by heavy ships landing in the night. He scanned the horizon and his heart tightened. Dark shapes moved on the ridges. Armed hunters. They weren't merchants, they weren't guards, they were bounty men, drawn by rumors of a runaway orphan. Inside the cabin, Kalira stirred awake. Her golden eyes blinked in the dim light. She sat up, her small frame still wrapped in rags. Her gaze fell on the human's back as he stood in the doorway, silent and tense. "What is it?" she asked softly. He didn't turn. "We have trouble." Her heart sank. She stood quickly, moving closer. Her body trembled, but not from cold. It was fear. Fear she had known since birth. "They've come for me," she whispered. He faced her finally, his eyes steady. "Then we'll face them together." Kalira shook her head violently. "No, you don't understand. They won't stop. They'll kill you just to drag me back." He stepped closer, placing a hand on her shoulder, firm but gentle. "Listen to me. I don't care who they are. You're not going back." Her throat tightened. For a second, she almost believed him. But the sound of engines cut through the air, loud, sharp, growing closer. The hunters had found them. The cabin door shook as heavy boots landed outside. Voices shouted in alien tongues. Weapons, clicking. The human pulled out his blaster, eyes narrowing. "Stay behind me," he ordered. Kalira froze, her hands trembling. She wanted to obey, to hide, to vanish into the shadows. But something deep inside her stirred, a heat that spread from her chest to her arms. Her veins glowed faintly again. The door burst open and hunters stormed inside, their armor black, their visors glowing red. "Step aside, human," one barked. "That creature belongs to us." "She belongs to no one," the human growled, firing. The room exploded in noise. Sparks flew as blaster bolts struck metal. Walls, one hunter fell. Another staggered back. Kalira pressed against the wall, her breath sharp and fast. But when a hunter lunged toward the human with a blade, something snapped inside her. She screamed, not a normal scream, but one filled with power. Golden light burst from her body. The air shook, the walls rattled. The hunter flew backward as if struck by an invisible force, crashing into the ground. The human turned in shock. "Kalira?" Her chest heaved, her hands glowing like fire. She looked down at herself in horror. No, this can't be," the hunter shouted in alarm. "She's awakened." One yelled, "She's not weak after all." Kalira's legs shook, but her fear was replaced by rage. For the first time in her life, she wasn't running. She stood in front of the human, her small frame shining with strange energy. "Stay away from him," she cried. Her voice carried like thunder. The hunters hesitated, eyes wide. They had heard stories of her bloodline, of ancient warriors who could channel power beyond flesh. They had believed she was a failure, but now the truth burned before them. The human stepped beside her, his blaster ready. "Looks like they were wrong about you," he said with a faint grin. Kalira's golden eyes locked on his. Her lips trembled. "You're not afraid?" "Afraid?" He smirked. "No, I fight better with you here." Her chest warmed. Her fear turned into something new. Strength. Courage. For the first time, she didn't feel like a burden. She felt like a partner. Together, they fought back. The human's blaster struck with deadly precision while Kalira's power exploded in waves, throwing hunters into the sand, breaking their weapons with invisible force. When the dust finally settled, silence filled the air. The hunters lay, scattered across the ground, defeated. Some crawled away, whispering in fear about what they had witnessed. Kalira fell to her knees, her glow fading. She gasped for breath, exhausted. The human rushed to her side, lifting her carefully. "You saved me," he said, his voice low, filled with awe. Her eyes watered. She shook her head weakly. "No, you saved me first." He held her close, his hand steady against her back. "Then maybe we save each other." Her body leaned into him, fragile but alive. For the first time in her life, she felt more than an orphan, more than unwanted. She felt needed. But above them in the sky, more ships moved, larger and heavier. The fight was far from over. The mate claim ritual. The cabin was quiet again. The hunters had fled. But the human knew it would not last. Stronger enemies would return. Kalira lay on the bed, exhausted, her glow fading slowly until her skin looked normal again. He watched, her breathing steady, his mind heavy with questions. Who was she really? Why did she carry such strange power? But when her golden eyes opened once more, he pushed the questions away. He only smiled. "You're safe." Kalira turned her face, ashamed. "You saw what I am. Now you understand why no one wanted me." But the human shook his head. "What I saw was strength. What I saw was someone who fought for me." Her chest tightened, her lips trembled, but no words came. She closed her eyes, letting his voice sink into her heart. That night when he finally slept, Kalira rose quietly. She stepped outside under the silver moonlight, her body still weak but her spirit restless. She could not hide forever behind him. She needed to face her own past. Her bare feet carried her into the woods. The trees whispered in the wind, guiding her. She found an old stone circle, an ancient place of her people, half buried, broken, but still glowing faintly with forgotten fire. She knelt in the center, placing her hands on the stone. Her voice shook as she whispered the old words. "Mark me. Judge me, make me worthy." The stones answered. Heat seared into her skin, symbols burned across her arms, chest and back, glowing red like fire. She cried out but did not stop. The ritual of her people was cruel. Only those who survived the fire marks could claim a mate. Of their own choosing, she had been denied this right all her life, but now she demanded it. When the flames faded, she collapsed on the ground, her body trembling, smoke rising from the marks, but her heart felt stronger. She was no longer the orphan in rags. She had earned the right to choose. At dawn, she returned to the cabin. Her steps weak but steady. The human rushed to her, eyes wide at the sight of her scorched skin. "Kalira, what happened?" She raised, her hand gently stopping him. Her voice was quiet but firm. "I went to reclaim myself." He stared, confused. "Reclaim," she nodded, her golden eyes burning with new strength. "In my culture, only those marked by fire can choose a mate. Without the marks, I was nothing, unworthy. But now," she stepped closer, trembling but brave. "Now I can choose." His heart pounded, he whispered. "And who do you choose?" Her breath caught, her lips curved in a small, fragile smile. "You." The word struck him harder than any battle. He froze, staring at her, her body scarred, her voice shaking, but her eyes steady and true. Before he could respond, a harsh voice cut through the air. "Blasphemy." The cabin door crashed open. Alien elders entered, tall and powerful, their robes heavy with symbols, their eyes full of rage. "You dare claim a human as mate?" One roared. "This is forbidden." Kalira stepped in front of the human. Spreading her arms wide, her voice rose with fire. "I will not be owned, I will not be given away, I choose him." The elders snarled. "Then you defy the blood of your people, you defy the law." The human gripped his blaster, standing beside her, his voice calm but dangerous. "Then you'll have to take both of us." The elders raised their hands. Power, crackling in the air. The ground shook, the fire dimmed. Kalira's new marks glowed brighter, responding to the challenge. Her body trembled, not with fear, but with determination. She turned her head slightly toward the human, whispering, "No matter what happens, don't let go." His eyes locked with hers, steady. "Never." The cabin filled with blinding light as the elders unleashed their attack. Kalira screamed, not in fear, but in defiance. Her power erupted like a storm, the power of her kind, the cabin shook as the Elder's power crashed through the air. Sparks of red and black lightning ripped across the floor. The human pulled Kalira behind him, but she pushed forward instead. Her glowing marks burned brighter, answering the attack. With golden light, the Elders hissed, "Impossible, the orphan carries the fire marks." Another snarled, "She was supposed to be sterile, weak, worthless." Kalira's golden eyes blazed. "I was weak because you made me weak. You left me in rags. You let me starve. You told me I was nothing, but I am not nothing." She lifted. Her hands and power exploded outward. The golden light turned into wings of energy spreading behind her. They weren't physical, but they glowed so bright they lit the whole room. The human stood in awe, shielding his eyes. He had seen blasters, bombs, ships, but never power like this. She was no longer the shivering orphan in rags. She was something ancient, something royal. The Elders tried again, blasting dark energy at her. But the golden wings absorbed it, shattered it. Kalira stepped forward, her voice rising like thunder. "You wanted me hidden. You wanted me broken, but you cannot hide the blood of the first line." The human's heart pounded. He realized what she meant. She wasn't just from any clan, she was heir to a bloodline thought extinct, the true rulers of her people. The Elders faltered, fear flashing in their eyes. "If she awakens fully, the old power will return," one whispered. "We cannot allow this." Kalira's body shook. The power inside her was too much, too heavy, her knees bent, almost breaking under the weight. But then she felt it, warm hands gripping her shoulders, steadying her. The human's voice was calm in her ear. "You don't have to carry it alone, I'm here." Her breath caught. Her strength wavered, but his touch held her steady. She nodded once, then her wings blazed brighter. Together they faced the Elders. The human's blaster fired with perfect aim, dropping one who tried to rush them. Kalira's golden energy surged like fire, striking the others, forcing them back. The room became a storm. Wood shattered, walls cracked, but the cabin stood because her wings shielded it. The human fought, like a soldier, precise and fearless. She fought like a queen, fierce and unbroken. At last the Elders stumbled, burned and defeated. Their robes torn, their power fading. One glared at her, spitting venom. "You have cursed your people with this choice, orphan." Kalira stepped forward, her golden light fierce and steady. "I am not an orphan anymore," she declared. "I am Kalira of the first line, and I have chosen my mate. He is human, and he is mine." The Elders hissed in rage, retreating into the shadows, their voices echoing. "This is not the end, child. We will return, and when we do, both of you will fall." Silence filled the broken cabin. The golden wings slowly faded. Kalira dropped to her knees, breathing hard. The human caught her before she could collapse fully. Holding her in his arms, her voice trembled. I could not have done it without you." He shook his head. "No, you were always powerful. You just needed someone to remind you who you are." Her eyes filled with tears, not of weakness, but of release. For so long she had carried only pain, only rejection. Now she carried something else. Hope. She whispered, "I was told no one would ever want me, that I would never be a female, never be worthy of love." Her voice cracked. "But you saw me." The human's heart twisted. He touched her cheek gently, lifting her face to his. "I didn't just see you, Kalira. I chose you too." Her golden eyes widened, then softened. A faint smile curved her lips. She leaned into him, resting her forehead against his chest. For the first time, she felt whole. Outside, the sky rumbled with distant thunder. Ships moved in the distance. War was coming, but inside that cabin, the bond between human and alien was sealed in fire and truth. Her name was Kalira. Weeks turned into months. The desert outpost slowly healed from the battles, but whispers spread across the galaxy. Stories of a forgotten orphan who unleashed golden wings. Stories of a human who stood by her side. Kalira was no longer the girl in rags. She walked with steady steps, her body strong, her golden eyes bright. The fire marks on her skin glowed, faintly, symbols of her rebirth. The human stayed with her, never once leaving. Together they rebuilt the broken cabin into a home. It was simple, but it was theirs. For Kalira, it was the first place she ever belonged. One night, while the fire burned low, Kalira sat near the table, her fingers brushing over a piece of cloth she had kept since childhood, the same rag she once wrapped herself in. She stared at it in silence, her lips trembling. The human walked over, sitting beside her. "Why do you keep it?" he asked gently. She held it tighter. "Because it reminds me of what I was, so I never forget, so I never go back." Her golden eyes flickered toward him. "But sometimes, it feels like that orphan still lives inside me." He reached over, taking the rag from her hand, his voice calm, steady. "That orphan is gone, Kalira. You're not her anymore. You're more than what they said, more than what they tried to make you." Her throat tightened. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to let go of the shadow of her past, but a small voice inside still whispered she was unworthy. He leaned closer, his eyes warm. "Do you know what I see when I look at you?" She shook her head, silent, afraid to ask. He smiled faintly. "I don't see an orphan. I don't see weakness. I see Kalira, the one who fought for me, the one who saved me, the one who deserves a place in this world." Her chest burned, her hands trembled, tears welled in her eyes. For years she had longed to hear such words. For years she had lived believing she was nothing. Now a human's voice tore those chains apart. He reached into his pack, pulling out a small piece of carved wood. He had spent nights shaping it with his knife, cutting carefully until it took form. He placed it in her hands. On the wood was carved a name, Kalira Hansen. She stared at it, her lips parting in shock. "What is this?" He smiled softly. "On Earth, when someone belongs to your family, when someone is yours, they take your name. I want you to have mine." Her hands shook. She traced the letters slowly, her golden eyes wide, her voice cracked. "You would give me your name?" He nodded, his voice steady. "Because you're not alone anymore, because you're not nothing, because you're mine if you want to be." Her tears finally fell. She pressed the wooden carving to her chest. Her voice trembled. "I want to." She leaned into him, her forehead resting against his. "For so long I was just the orphan, just a number, but now I have a name, I have a place, I have you." The fire flickered, wrapping them both in its glow. For the first time, she smiled without fear. But their story did not end in silence. Word of Kalira's return spread across her people. The elders, who once mocked her, now feared her. The orphans who once suffered in rags now looked to her as hope. One day she stood before a gathering of her people, no longer hiding, no longer bowing her head. The human stood at her side, his hand in hers. The crowd whispered, staring at the golden marks across her skin, at the human who walked beside her. Kalira raised her voice, strong and steady.